Hello there, folks! Hatma here, and I truly hope you're having a lovely day. This is a comprehensive military tutorial, primarily aimed at beginners, where we cover everything from generals and officers to different army formations, how to create and maintain your armies, what technologies to research for both British and American campaigns, as well as understanding complex game mechanics, such as fog of war, reporting, training, foraging, and looting. This video was meant to be seen as a whole. If you have no time, use timestamps to quickly find whatever you need. I've spent tens of hours working on this tutorial. If you want to support the channel, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing, or even becoming a channel member. Let's begin. In this game, there are no turns. Everything happens in real time. What makes this game more complex is introduction of fog of war and reporting mechanics. Even though these settlements here belong to us, they are in fog of war, and we cannot really tell what is happening immediately right now. It's more difficult to tell what is happening in Spanish settlements. These guys will report daily on their situation to headquarters. This applies to both your troops and settlements, but there will be certain delays. And what do I mean by that? If we take one of our regiments, we're going to get them out, and let's just slowly start so we can get them here. We're going to order them to move from Beaufort to Orangeburg, and let's speed it up to see if they move. So they are moving. There's an indicator, but visually nothing is happening here. This is the next day, and nothing is happening once again. Okay, now they're kind of teleported. And what happens if we go up north? Let's speed it up. Now they're moving normally. Well, why is this the case? Because as we said, even though these are our territories, we cannot really see everything in real time. There is a certain delay, maybe about a day. And now when they enter the general radius, he can tell what is happening in fog of war. Basically, your generals are the most important units because they break the fog of war, and reporting is instant. Reporting speed depends on multiple factors. Technology research can speed up or slow it down. For example, domestic intelligence will speed it up by 3%, while covert actions will have a side effect of slowing down by 4%, so be careful what kind of technologies you research. Then there are some events that you cannot really control, but will speed up or slow down your reporting time. Chief of Intelligence Officer is also very important. The better his numbers are, the lower down the timer will be. But the most effective thing will be intelligence cost. So the higher the intelligence cost, you can expect better results. Besides lowering reporting speed, it lowers the chance of sabotage. It gives you detailed information about not only your positions, but enemy positions and troop numbers. A huge downside would be the price. It's over 4,000. It's something that we pay every single day. So it's not cheap at any stage of the campaign. You can max it out like this only if you're under a lot of pressure and if there are no defined front lines. Now that we have maxed out our intelligence department, and after a day has passed by, we're going to use our regiment to conduct the same type of tests from Beaufort to Orangeburg. Previously took them basically 1 day to report, and now we're going to move you up, and let's check how many times they report. They're still here. 1, 2, 3. And I'm gonna try to pause it here. Yeah, 4. Basically 4. Before we started paying for intelligence cost, it took only 1 report per day. Now we get 4 reports per day. Additional benefit, as I said, you can get information on the enemy, their position, their numbers, even outside of the settlements. So it's up to you to decide if it's worth it or not. In order to recruit any regiment, you need a commander that's available that will be in charge of that regiment. Then you need money. Depending on the type of regiment, you can pay more or less. For example, militia is cheaper than line infantry or cavalry. But it also depends on number of companies used for that regiment. Then specialists are used for construction, and they're used for armies, they're used as low-ranking officer. So militia would require less specialists than line infantry. In order to increase number of specialists, you can go to your settlements, construction, and then build schools or universities to increase number of specialists. Weapons are also a must. You need muskets, you need rifles, you need cannons for your artillery, you need horses for your cavalry, you need wagons for your supply regiments. Also, army size is crucial. Here we have 102 out of 187 regiments. We have specific limitations to number of generals, supply regiments. During the British campaign, you have limitations to number of militia you can recruit. During the American, you don't have that problem. You can increase number of regiments by researching specific technologies, but the most reliable way would be to go to construction management. There we have military facilities. Here it costs about $1,500 and about 20 construction material. You just click here, and every time you click, you have to wait a little bit, and you're gonna be increasing your army size by 1 regiment at a time. Important thing to understand is ammo and provisions are necessary for recruiting any type of regiment. You have to supply them. If you do not understand where does the ammo or provision come from and how they're produced, check out description below. There is a economic tutorial that I conducted before, and you're gonna understand everything. Base military unit in this game is a regiment. There are 4 different types of regiment. We have militia, we have fusiliers, we have cavalry, and we have supply regiment. If we want to recruit a new regiment, we have to click on a settlement. Then we go here, and we have all 4 regiments plus the ships, because this is a naval city. Then we click on a militia regiment, for example, and this is where we have to understand that every regiment consists of commanding officer that we can select here, and number of companies. There are limitations to types and numbers of companies in a different regiment. So for militia, we can have up to 4 companies. The most common one, and the ones that have no limitations, would be militia companies. They can be white, they can be black, but you can have up to 4 of them. Then we have special companies in artillery and Minutemen. They're basically your skirmishers. They can appear only once. You cannot double them. Fusilier regiment can have up to 6 companies, and the only company with no limitations would be Fusiliers themselves, so we can get like first 3 of them. Then the 4th slot, you will open up your artillery that consists of mortars and field cannons and howitzers. If you select one, it will disappear from the next slot. So now we can choose between Fusilier, supply stretcher, or skirmisher. Let's go with skirmisher. In the final one, you're going to get an elite company option between grenadiers and guards. So I'm just going to get guards, for example. When it comes to cavalry regiment, we also need an officer here. Cavalry regiment consists of 3 dragoon companies. So here, here, and here. You can have 1, you have 3, as many as you wish. And supply regiment or supply party consists of 3 supply companies at max. Sometimes you might find yourself unable to recruit a regiment due to lack of officers. Right now we have no officers, and what you can do this time is to wait until the end of the week. So it has to be Monday. So let's go. This is good. Then we're gonna go to headquarters, and now if you're without an officer for a week, you're gonna get offer for 1 to 3 officers, depending on how good their skills are. If their skills are great, only 1 officer. If their skills are very low, 3 officers. These guys have average skills, so we're gonna put this project here, and as long as we have above 15 reputation, we should not worry. So let's spend reputation here, and we're gonna wait for the next day to be able to actually recruit a new regiment. Here we are. We have 2 fresh officers ready for duty. The same as you can recruit a regiment, you can alter it, but you cannot do it outside. There is nothing you can do here. But you have to click on the garrison regiment. For example, this one. It belongs to Thor. Shout out to Thor. Then you can maybe remove this one, and instead of skirmisher company, you can place a supply stretcher company. Let's go with that. And here it is. It's applied. Then you can get rid of some of the companies if you like. Why not? Or if maybe your regiment is too expensive, you don't have the funds, or maybe sometimes it's surrounded, it's about to get destroyed, what you can do is to disband it completely. You click here on this head, and it asks you, are you sure that you want to disband this regiment? You're going to receive all the weapons, all the officers, all the recruits that were used for this particular regiment, and you go okay. You save the officer, you save the recruits, you save the equipment if you know that your regiment is going to be destroyed, or you just cannot afford to pay for it. As you can change composition of your companies in a regiment, you can change their weapons as well. All you have to do is just to click on one of them. Then maybe I don't really like Brown Bess 69 because I have a slightly better musket. It's a Charleville 66, the French one. So we're gonna do the same here, and our guard's gonna get the same one. Then we can click here to change the weapons of our battery, their personal weapons, that is. We can maybe go for Charleville 66. Then I don't really like 8-inch mortars. They're smaller in diameter, so I'm gonna take the newer ones, 13-inch ones. They're more powerful, they have greater range. And for our skirmishers, we're gonna award them with maybe Pennsylvania rifle, because skirmishers awarded rifles. They excel with rifles. If you don't have them, you can use some muskets. But now we can click apply, and if I double click once again, we can see that all the weapons are changed. But you can say, Hetman, I don't really have all those weapons. They're inaccessible for me. Maybe you only have civilian muskets. The way to solve this is to go to headquarters and research technologies. I'm in the late stages of my campaign, so I have pretty much all the weapons here. If you're interested in artillery, you have to go to artillery chief, and you start off with 3-pounders, you can produce them. You can research 4-pounders, you can go to field guns like 6 and 12-pounders. If you don't like them, you can go for your mortars and howitzers. On the other hand, if you're interested in muskets and rifles, we have to go to Chief Engineer. Here we are researching Virginia 76. We can get our hunter rifles or skirmishers or Pennsylvania rifle, whatever, but you need to research it. Then you still cannot use it because it needs to be produced. So we go to production management over here, and for example, we're producing musket, but maybe I want to get, I don't know, let's say that we don't have enough hunter rifles, and you can see the numbers produced per day. We have supply, and we have the number of muskets being produced, or number of rifles. You can do the same with cannons, with pretty much anything you need. But I'm not going to go too much into depth here because I already did this in my economy tutorial video. I strongly recommend you checking out for a lot of details on raw materials, of how and what to produce. There are a lot of details. As you start with British, you have way more options. You start off with short Brown Bess 69 for your cavalry and long Brown Bess 69 for your infantry. When it comes to naval cannons, you have everything from 4-pounders to 18-pounders. And then you have a battery of 3 and 4-pounder guns for your infantry regiments. Then you have 5.5-inch howitzer and 8-inch mortar. If you want to improve your weapons, you have to go to headquarters, then Council of War, and here you can go down this tree. If you're interested in your British muskets, you can go down this one if you're interested more in cannons and mortars and howitzers. On this side, you can get some foreign musket like Prussian one. As we learned previously, regiment compositions and weapons can be changed with exception of mercenary and foreign regiments. Here we have 2 foreign regiments. The first one belongs to France, the other one belongs to Spain, and we have a Native American regiment. Well, if you double click on any one of them, nothing will happen. There is no edit button, as you can see, only disband mercenary. Well, there is a difference between mercenaries and foreign fighters, because foreign fighters are your allies. If you're allied with France or Spain at a specific time during your campaigns, they will occasionally send you some extra troops. Interesting thing is that you don't really pay for their salaries, which is great. Well, with the Native Americans, you have to pay. If they lose men, you'll be able to replenish them if you have recruits and the weapons. But they have very unique weapons. For example, French have Charleville 66, and the Spanish have Spanish 55s. So you need to go to headquarters, chief engineer, and you need to have these two researched if you want to produce them in big enough numbers. You can alternatively buy them. They're expensive to buy, but also not enough of them are on the market, so you might struggle replenishing them. There is one bigger problem. If any of these regiments during the combat lose their companies, they might shatter, they might surrender to the enemy. You cannot replace those. Creating a regiment is all fine and dandy, but what if you don't have access to some of these companies here? Or even infantry regiment or cavalry regiment just non-existent for you? Well, the answer lays in technological research, and it depends if you're playing American or British campaign. At the beginning of your American campaign, you have access to only 2 regiments. This will be Militia and Supply Regiment. Well, if we go to Commander-in-Chief, this is where pretty much all the fun is. We can see a couple of things. Fusiliers are all the way here. It's Continental Army reforms, but it would take quite some time to research this. You can have something faster, and that will be Continental Army. Continental Army will give you 2 extra Fusilier regiments, but at the beginning, you have 2 or 3 Fusilier regiments when you start your campaign, depending on what you choose, but they can only have Fusilier companies. For example, Militia at the start can have pretty much all the companies. Artillery or skirmisher, it doesn't matter. But with Fusiliers, you cannot do that. You need to research Continental Army to have access to artillery and skirmisher companies. Then, if you want to research cavalry, you need to go for dragoons. Then, if you're interested in more elite companies, they come much later in the form of guards and grenadiers here. We can also go to artillery chief, because even if you research artillery for your Fusiliers, there is something you cannot really use. This will be mortars. Sometimes you capture mortars from the British, but you cannot really use them because your militia cannot use them, and in order to give them to your Fusiliers, you need to research Ordnance Innovation 3 for your mortars, right? Then we have one more. It's in Quartermaster. If we go at the start, we can see here Regional Warehouse and Supply Stretcher. If you want to get Supply Stretcher as a company in your regiment, you need to go for support training here. Once you research Continental Army reforms and basically get Fusilier regiments, you can go to a settlement and you can find Militia Regiment. You can double click, or you can go to Edit Unit, whatever you prefer. Then top left corner says upgrade Militia to Fusiliers. So now you'll be able to actually transform Militia to Fusilier Regiment. This will cost you some extra money and some extra officers, but do not worry, it's not these officers, it's actually specialists on this side. If we go there and we click upgrade here, now this Militia Regiment becomes Fusilier Regiment, and we can expand some companies because Fusilier Regiment has 6 companies. We can go for maybe skirmishers, we can go for grenadiers, why not? Well, you can do this sometimes, but you should not be doing this very often or with all of your militia. Militia still has purpose on the battlefield. Militia is much cheaper to maintain than Fusilier regiments, and if you're protecting your frontier forts, it's much better to use Militia, because for the 2/3 of the campaign, you cannot really pay salaries of all Fusiliers. That's impossible. So make sure to upgrade them slowly over time as your financial situation improves. During the British campaign, things are quite a bit different. So you can only get Militia Regiment and Supply Regiment in the colonies for the entirety of the campaign. If you want to get your line infantry and cavalry, you actually have to click here and go back to Britain. Then select some of the cities you might have less or more of them depending on the stage of the campaign. So if we click to Bristol, we can click here, and now we can get ourselves an infantry regiment. So we're gonna get an officer. Let's just see what kind of companies are accessible right now. We have pretty much everything. We have grenadier companies, skirmisher companies, artillery batteries, mortars, and supply companies. What we are missing would be the elites, like guards. And in order to get them, we actually have to go to headquarters and then Council of War. In the bottom right corner, we can see all the way here from the start, all the way down. We can get Royal Grenadiers, Royal Highlanders, Royal Guards. Yeah, we can unlock them here. One of the biggest differences as well is not only how you recruit your regiments, but also how do you resupply them. The problem with the manpower in the colonies that your line infantry cannot be replenished from the local population. That means that, again, you have to go here and you have to send like a specific number of recruits to the colonies. In case your regular infantry dies, attritions, whatever, they will be the ones to replenish them. Otherwise, you cannot get replenishment. And you have to use merchant ships to send your men to the colonies. Here you can see that 10 ships are on the way, carrying 300 recruits. That means 30 recruits per ship. Right now we're in Britain, and we have 2 regiments, one in Bristol, one in Plymouth. So how do we actually transfer them to the colonies? Well, you have to click here to create fleet. Then we have a regiment over here. It says aboard unarmed troop ship, or we can choose an armed one. As long as we have armed ones, we're going to go with this one, and the same we're going to do here. Now we have an army. But if you have any ships, and right now we don't have any ships, we send them all to colonies, we can create a convoy and they will be protecting our army in the convoy. It would take 30 days for this fleet to actually arrive. So we're going to go set sail, and are you sure? Okay. Bulk of recruitment should be conducted in major cities like Boston, Hartford, New Haven, New York, or Philly. New regiments will require provisions and ammo to be recruited. So try constructing provisions and ammo storage buildings in new recruiting centers or near them. Then recruitment and replenishment speed is determined by multiple factors. Size of the workforce will be one of them. The bigger the workforce, the more potential recruits you can have. Similar things apply to loyalty. The better the loyalty, the more recruits you will have. The lower the loyalty, less recruits you will have. Well, if the loyalty is below 50%, like currently in Hartford, you will not be able to recruit any new regiments. But if the loyalty drops below 40%, this settlement will have to be garrisoned so it doesn't rebel. Native mercenaries can only be recruited from regions where their tribe lives. For example, we have Albany. If we click on Fort Saratoga, we can see that we have offered mercenaries. But if the tensions with native tribes are above 50%, you won't be able to recruit these native mercenaries. You can also speed up recruitment by building a recruitment house in some of your settlements. Maybe using a recruitment officer in a region. You just click here, we select recruitment officer, and we have to pay for him, and that's it. Then we have doctrine. If we go to colonies management, in a specific colony, we can activate a doctrine regarding recruitment. Of course, we have to pay depending on the size of the colony. We'll pay more or less, and we're going to have more or less recruits. Another way would be to increase bounty. If we go to headquarters, we can increase bounty. This is the amount of money that we pay for every new recruit. The higher it is, the more recruits you will have. The lower it is, the less recruits you will have. Centralizing recruitment in major settlements is faster and more productive, but can deplete the workforce and cause loyalty issues. And Hartford, Connecticut is a prime example of this situation, because at the start of the campaign, workforce in Hartford is about 22,000. Now it's a bit less than 5,000. This means that income will be smaller, and also construction time of all these buildings will be higher. Then loyalty has connection with recruitment. Well, if we go to Boston and there is 6 Connecticut, If we click here, it says unit's home region is Hartford. Casualties will lead to a loss of loyalty in this region. So whenever you recruit a regiment in Hartford and it goes off in fights and attritions, you will suffer loyalty debuffs in Hartford. But if these regiments actually improve, they get some extra perks, you're going to get some buffs. The problem is you usually suffer more casualties that you get promoted, and this is why we actually have to keep a garrison in Hartford right now. It's time to talk about replenishment and recruitment queue in the settlement. Well, we are currently in Charlestown, and we had 3 old regiments that we disbanded. We can see there are a lot of enlisted recruits here waiting to be distributed. We have 7 new regiments. The question is, how are these recruits going to be distributed to these new regiments? Are they going to follow, I don't know, superiority when it comes to line infantry versus militia or cavalry versus line infantry? Actually, it doesn't matter. The order would be the left to the right and the bottom left to the bottom right. If we do a small experiment, so here we can actually increase supply for the regiment. We have 2 ways, as we said. One favors the top left order. The other one would be here, supply priority. Let's see what will happen. We're not going to have enough recruits for everybody the first day, so we're just going to see what happens. Okay, here we are. The first 3 regiment got all of their recruits. The 4th one is almost there. And the final 3 did not get any. This is, even though they have set priority at the highest level, and these guys have low priority, this is the precedence. So from the top left to the top right, then bottom left to the bottom right. This is how it works. What happens if we, for example, move priority on one of these? Let's see what happens the next day. Which regiment will be replenished? From 120 to 132, because we kind of are out of recruits. But this demonstrates what is the queue order. You can manipulate this queue by prioritizing, but you have to push these regiments to the left. We said the supply order doesn't really work on the garrison troops, but now we're in the open. We have our army here, various troops. We're going to give them slightly different supply priorities. So our infantry regiment will get level 2, while maybe militia can actually go to level 3, and everybody else is on level 1 priority. We have only 11 provisions. Well, these guys need 7, these guys need 6.5, and these guys need a lot. So basically, we're not going to have enough supplies for everybody. So let's actually move and see what happens with supplies. If the priority is actually correct. I'm going to slow it down real quick. And yeah. These guys are giving up their supplies. These guys got 3, right? These guys got 7. And that's it. No supplies to anybody else. It's time to talk about money. To understand your finances, you need to check your financial report. I'm not going to talk about this in detail because I already covered it in my economic tutorial. It's actually in the description of this video, so I'm not going to bother. What we're going to do to go headquarters, commander-in-chief, and then we have 2 options, salary and bounty. Salary is the amount of money that you pay your troops every week. So every Monday, you have to pay them this amount of money. That's about 75,000 US dollars. And bounty is the number that you pay per recruit. When it comes to salaries, at the beginning of your campaign, this modifier is, here it's 1.5. It's like below 1, maybe 0.5, 0.6. So as the campaign progresses, every few months or every 6 months, there is a higher demand for salary. And how can you recognize this? Well, it says unit morale -3. That means the current salary is not enough. So if I go here to plus, unit morale is 0. That means it's normal, it's 100%. If I increase it, maybe twice, it will be plus 3% morale for all the units. We're going to go back to 6. Well, what you can do is to lower down salaries when you're not expecting a major fight. Why? Because salaries are your biggest expenditure by far. So if we go to maybe -9, there will be no major impact. It says if the salary level is lower than expected, the desertion rate rises. So this is not too bad. As long as you're below 10%, double digits, you're cool. You can go to maybe -12, but never go to below -15. That's really bad. So I would recommend usually going to about double digits, about 8 or 9, depending on the situation. As we said, desertion rates can be seen here in your reputation. The more deserters you have, the worse your reputation situation will be. And we're gonna have an experiment a bit later. Why is this a mechanism? Well, this is preventing players. You're developing your territories, you're getting more and more finance. This is preventing a player from exploding and having too many troops. When it comes to bounty, bounty works like this. Currently, we're paying $400 per 100 recruits. That means for every single recruit, we're paying $4. In the past, I didn't think it was too much, but I did some calculations. Actually, this is quite a bit significant number. It works the same as salaries. The higher the bounty, the more recruits you're gonna have. The lower the bounty, less recruits you're gonna have. What happens when you cannot really afford to pay salaries anymore? Currently, salaries are 0 and bounty is 0. So we're just gonna get out of here. We're gonna go to Kingston. We have a brigade, and they have 663 men each. We're gonna leave Gary so they cannot be reinforced. And today's April 16th, Sunday. We're gonna see what happens until the next Sunday. Now is April 23rd. It's Sunday once again. After a week, these guys went from 663 to 555 men. So they lost over 100 men in a single week. And not only that, but if we look at the reputation, deserters impact is -31 per week. That means in a couple of weeks, you're done. It's GG. It's time to talk about price per company. So first we have militia here. 150 men, 150 muskets. 135 is the cost of recruitment and 2 specialists. Artillery for militia is, of course, 100 men, 100 muskets, $1,125, so much more expensive than militia. Then we have 5 specialists and 4 cannons. Then we have Minutemen. They're also more expensive. 100 men, 100 muskets or rifles, depending on what you have. $450 and 5 specialists. Fusiliers, on the other hand, are more expensive. They have 120 men, the same number of muskets, $540 and 6 specialists per company. Then skirmishers are even more expensive. They have 100 men, the same amount of muskets or rifles, $670 and 5 specialists per company. Supply stretcher is significantly cheaper, has less men, $225 and 2.5 specialists. With artillery and mortars is basically the same. There is no difference. It actually applies as the militia artillery. Everything is basically the same. Then we have grenadiers. They have 120 men, the same as Fusiliers. We need the same number of muskets. They are significantly more expensive, 1,080. And they require 6 specialists, 1.2 textiles. Textiles are not expensive. When it comes to guards, guards are the same as grenadiers in price, but they cost fur, and fur is much more valuable than textile. Then we have dragoons. They require 80 men, 80 muskets, of course. They require $1,800, so by far the most expensive company in the game. 4 specialists, and of course 80 horses that are priced by themselves. And then we have supply company. That means 50 men, 50 muskets, 225. Cost is basically the same as supply stretcher. 2.5 specialists and 5 wagons. This is recruitment on a regimental level. So we have Commander-in-Chief. We have salaries at 1 and bounty at 4. These round numbers are easier to calculate. This is why we're going with them. So we have here Fusilier Regiment that consists only of Fusilier companies. The price for them only would be 3,240. Then remember that they have 720 men. Then times 4, because this is the bounty, it will be 2,880 just for the bounty itself, and the total price would be 6,120 because we're adding price of these companies plus the value of bounty, and we get the total price of the regiment. So not very cheap. Mixed Fusilier Regiment that consists of 3 Fusilier companies, 1 skirmisher, 1 artillery, 1 guard company would be 4,500. Then it has 680 men times 4 times the bounty. It's 2,720. And the total price will be 7,220. We have only Militia Regiment here. 4 companies of Militia. There will be 540. Very cheap. But then we have 600 men times 4, the bounty. And the total price would be somewhat less of 3,000. Then we have Mixed Militia Regiment. We can see that it consists of 2 militia companies, 1 Minuteman, and 1 artillery company. The price is much, much higher. Compare this to this. It's like 3.5 times higher. Then we have a bit less for the bounty because it has less men. And the total price would be 3,800. Then we have Dragoons. 4 Dragoon companies. There's nothing we can change here or in Supply Regiment. These 3 companies would create the price of 5,400. We have 960 as a bounty, and the total value would be 6,360. Then 3 supply companies or supply regiment will cost 675, 600 as a bounty, and the total would be 1,275. Well, I hope this helped you understand the price of different types of regiments. As we covered recruiting prices of companies and regiments, let's talk a little bit about the company salaries. If we take that multiplier is 1 in headquarters, coefficient for companies will be selected as C, and I'm going to try to explain quickly how this is being calculated. It's actually pretty easy. So we have number of men per company, and we have coefficient for specific company. In this case, Militia has coefficient of 0.5. We have number of men times coefficient equals the salary. So 150 men times 0.5 equals 75. So every week, if the multiplier in headquarters is 1, we pay $75 for salary every single week. Then we have artillery for militia, 100 men, coefficient is 2, salary is 200. Then we have Minutemen, it's 100 men, 1.5 is coefficient, salary is 150. Fusilier, 120 men, coefficient is only 1, that means salary is 120. Skirmishers are exactly the same as Minutemen, although Minutemen are a bit cheaper to recruit, if you guys remember. Then we have Supply Stretcher, even though it says 50, it's actually 100 men. We're going to have this one at 1, that means salary is 100. The same is with artillery and mortars for Fusilier units and for militia units. So everything is the same. Coefficient is the same. Then we have grenadiers with coefficient of 1.5, 120 men. That means salary is 180. For grenadiers, coefficient is 2, so they're a bit more expensive, and the salary is 240. And the dragoons are by far the most expensive to recruit and the most expensive to maintain, with coefficient of 5. So we have 80 men, 80.5. 80 times 5 equals 400. And we have a supply company that we do not really know how to calculate. I do not know what is the coefficient. I would say it's probably similar or the same as supply stretcher, but I do not have the data, unfortunately. Let's analyze how much we are paying for salaries for specific regiments. And actually, we had these sets of regiments before when we talked about recruitment. If we say that salary multiplier is only 1 and the bounty is 4, we actually don't need bounty for this one. We have 6 times Fusilier companies in a single regiment. That will be 720 men, 720 US dollars per week. Then we have mixed Fusilier regiment with 3 Fusilier companies, 1 skirmisher company, 1 artillery, and 1 guard company. That will be 950. Then we have 4 companies of militia in a regiment. That will be only 300. Then we have mixed militia regiment with 2 militia companies, 1 Minutemen, and 1 artillery. It will be 500, so quite a bit more than ordinary 4 militia companies. We have dragoons. That will be 3 times dragoon companies, 1,200. It's pretty expensive, 4 times of the ordinary militia regiment. Then we have 3 times supply company or supply regiment would be without data. On one side, we have generals like George Washington, and on the other side, we have standard officers. There are max 5 generals. They provide you with vision over the map, as well as boost your troops. In order to fight a tactical battle, you need to have a general present. On the other hand, you can have limitless numbers of standard officers. They can be in charge of a regiment, heads of departments, or could be used for missions. Here we have heads of departments, and the best of the best are here. They are boosting the speed of our research. Additionally, they're providing us with specific benefits for each department that we can check here. The longer generals and standard officers stay in their jobs, the better their stats will be. Generals and officers have 5 stats. The first one on top would be intelligence. This one refers to the efficiency. Then the second one would be perception, which affects ranged attack of the unit. Then we have endurance, which is responsible for stamina, how far your units can run and fight. Then we have dexterity, which is important for melee combat. And then we have willpower, that affecting morale of the unit. Depending on the stats, officers can actually improve the performance of your regiment, or they can lower it down significantly. So let's check this guy. He has all the hundreds. This guy's a legend. He's been doing his job for a very long time. So if we get a Fusilier company, for example, stats change from 50 to very different. So we can see how our stats being calculated here. Efficiency is 62. We have soldier's contribution is 25. Officer is 100. And when we add this up, this is 125 divided by 2, we get 62 or 62.5. The same is with melee. So we have 125. It's exactly the same story. Well, we can see that officer impact is plus 38. That means that officer is contributing to the regiment by adding more buffs. But what happens if we switch? Maybe we can go to one of the bad officers with very low stats. So efficiency is not bad. We have 25 for soldiers and we have 65 for the officer. That means that officer impact here is plus 20. But in melee, soldiers contribute by 25 points while officer contributes by 1. That is 26, and if we divide it by 2, we get 13. That means this officer is actually negatively affecting melee performance of the unit. What kind of officer is good for what type of regiment? This is a difficult question because there are a lot of things into motion here. First, infantry benefits from all the stats. If we talk about militia or Fusilier regiments, they benefit from all-around stats. Well, militia is usually used for garrisoning duty. They can garrison some forts, places where there is no much action. So if you have a low stats officer, I would usually give a militia regiment. Supply party or supply regiment is kind of useless in combat. The stats that you put in the officer for supply party doesn't really matter. So the worst officers should actually end up in supply parties. When it comes to infantry regiments, they're going to do bulk of your fighting, especially on the offensive. So they need good officers. And cavalry also depends on good officers. Maybe firearms are not important for cavalry because you can rarely dismount to fight. You're mostly going to fight with your melee stats because cavalry is there to charge. And this guy would be terrible choice for a cavalry regiment just because of his negative effect on melee. By fighting or training, your generals and regiments gain experience that they can convert into different perks. If we click on General Knox and we click here, we can see all the perks. There are actually 3 levels, and each level has 3 perks, of which you can select only one at a time. So, let's start with the level 1. This will give us Tireless. That means plus 10% for General Zone speed. Commander will give him bigger command radius. This is the area around the general. Scout would give him 10% more scouting chance of spotting the enemy on the battlefield. Then we have level 2 perks like Leader, plus 20 willpower, which is great for morale. We have long range tactics, plus 10 for firearms, and we have close range tactics, plus 10 for melee. Then we have logistics that will give us plus 20% ammo for all the units under his command. The same is with the trainer, plus 10% experience for the units, and tactician will give us 20% more speed for units under his command. Well, it's difficult to say what the perks are the best, but I usually go for command radius, commander. Then I would usually go for firearms, and the final one is kind of more difficult. I would prefer tactician, 20% move speed of units. This will give you more flexibility on the battlefield. Militia regiment and Fusilier regiments actually have the same perks. The first line of perks is discipline training and endurance course. If we're talking about militia, I would usually go for willpower and efficiency because their morale is quite a bit lower than regular troops. But if we were playing as line infantry or fusiliers, I would choose endurance course because we're going to get some extra stamina. This allows us to basically fight longer in melee and to chase down enemies faster. Then second tier perks are kind of difficult. They depend on your playstyle. If you prefer to go into melee, I would recommend Assault Course. Also, if you have a regiment that's fully in like Fusilier companies or militia companies, you have 4 or 6 of them, and no skirmishers, no artillery, then I would recommend this one because you can try to overwhelm enemy by charging in. Otherwise, if you have more balanced regiment, I would recommend firearms course. I think this one is better because it gives you some extra firearms, reload speed, or you can choose for marksman training. Accuracy and firearms also pretty good. Depends on which one you prefer. Well, the third tier is, again, depending on what type of style you have. Elite will give you willpower, efficiency, stamina, and melee. This is really good if you want to charge and fight a lot in close combat. Sharpshooter on the other side is better if you want to fire at the enemy. Cavalry perks are also unique. So the first line of perks, we have 3. Discipline training would give us 10 willpower and 5 efficiency. Horseback riding would give us some extra speed and efficiency, and endurance course would be plus 10 stamina and efficiency. Here I would choose usually between horseback riding. That 20% horse speed is great, but I think the best one probably is endurance course because the biggest enemy of cavalry here is lack of stamina. Cavalry can get tired easily. If they're charging in, they're fighting, they lose stamina like crazy. So this is probably the best stat you can give them. The second tier would be cavalry training, plus 15 melee, plus 5 stamina, and plus 20% charge damage, which is great. Shooting training increases firearms, stamina, and accuracy. Not great. I would usually stay away from any kind of shooting accuracy in firearms, simply because in this game you cannot fire from the horseback, and this is a big problem for the cavalry. Reconnaissance course is also pretty good because it gives you extra spotting power, 50% stealth. It means that enemies will have lesser chance of spotting your cavalry moving behind their lines, and will give you plus 10 stamina. So I would choose either this one or this one. And the third one is pretty simple. You have shock cavalry or mounted infantry. Shock cavalry will give you plus 10 melee, plus 10 willpower, and plus 20% charge damage. Well, mounted infantry, firearms, willpower, reload speed, and cover. As I said, never really choose this one. I feel like it's pretty useless. Anything that has to do with firearms is really bad for the cavalry. So I would usually go for these two or these two. And then the third line, I will go for short cavalry. It's time to talk about regiment UI when we're in the garrison. So here we have the first option. It's called on board. And if we click here, we can choose a ship. If we have a ship in this settlement that's next to the seaside, we can transfer our regiment onto that ship and then move it wherever we need to go. Well, the next one will be Live Gary. We can get outside of the garrison, and our options actually shrink, so we're just going to go back inside. With this regiment, we can also edit it, or we can just double click. We have two options, whatever we prefer. Then we have option for looting and foraging. I'm going to cover this in detail a bit later. Morale boost is also a cool option. So if you're fighting and your unit is losing morale, it's about to flee, you can buy them some time by injecting rum. You spend rum and their morale will increase, but morale has to be below 50 in order to do so. Then we have the name of militia, their location, their hometown, the name of the officer, and then number of companies. We have 2 militia companies. We have actually 3 militia companies, and we have artillery company. We can see how many perks we have. We can see combat stats, and I'm going to talk about them again in detail. We have priority of supply that we covered before. We can increase it, we can decrease it, we can turn specific things on for provisions, for ammo, for resupply, and then we have provisions. How many provisions we have, how many days are left. Then we have ammo, how much ammo we have for how many attacks. We have morale. One cool thing about morale is that we can see how much we are paying for our regiments. If you get rid of specific companies, you can actually tell. Here we have only one company, and right now we're paying 180 per week for one Fusilier company. But as we said before, this depends on salary multiplier. Then we also have conditioning. Conditioning represents how tired your troops are. So if they're very tired, they're going to perform worse in specifically melee combat. They get tired by shooting as well. If you're walking long distances, they also get tired, and the more tired they are, the slower they move. When there are 2 regiments fighting on the grand map, there is a way to determine the outcome. So if we go to these stats here, this one determines close combat or melee, and this one determines skirmishing when they're exchanging fire. Well, what goes into these stats? Let's see. If I double click here, we can see brand new regiment. It has kind of a low officer, and we have 3 Fusilier companies, we have a skirmisher company, we have a mortar company, and a guard company. On the other side, we have a very experienced regiment. This one belongs to a subscriber. Shout out to Indy. His officer is amazing, at 100%, and basically companies are identical, the weapons are identical. So let's check the stats. 118.8 and 87.5. How about here? 118.8, 87.5, and of course Indy has all 3 perks. This one has basically no perks used. That means that nothing makes sense. This does not make any difference. The officers do not make any difference. But what does make difference would be basically the weapons. So if we go here and we transfer everything to civilian muskets, these guys maybe could go to 8-inch mortars, and here we can go to this one. Let's apply. And now, when we look, 99.2, 78.5. If we get rid of some of the companies here, will look even worse. There are 2 bigger army formations than a regiment in this game. The first one will be a brigade. There are different types of brigades. One can be all infantry. The other one can be all cavalry. With the supply regiments, we cannot really form a brigade, and there will be no mixed brigades. What does this mean? Well, you cannot combine your cavalry and your infantry in a brigade, or your supply regiment. It's only cavalry and only infantry in a brigade. You can have a combined brigade in a sense of militia and fusiliers. What are the benefits of being in a brigade? First of all, it's easier to manipulate them on global map. So if I had 4 units, they're gonna sometimes, if I order them to come here, sometimes they're gonna pass the river, they're gonna go here and there, and when you're actually in a tactical battle, they're gonna be all over the place, so it will be more difficult to present a unified front. These are the benefits, and sometimes they can overwhelm smaller units with ease. You don't really have to worry about their movement. The problem is, if you're moving to like a faraway place like this, if you have a combined brigade with militia and fusiliers, the thing is that fusiliers are better. They have more morale, they have more conditioning. That means that they can walk for longer periods of time. And if your troops get exhausted, their conditioning drops, that means that they're gonna move slower. And when you're in a brigade, the regiment that gets tired first would be these guys. That means that they're gonna slow down the entire brigade. If you're fighting the enemy, for example, and again, as I said, militia has lower morale. So that means if they flee during a battle while they're in a brigade, the entire brigade will flee. So usually avoid having mixed brigades. I like to have militia only and fusilier only. And these types of brigades are good in a tactical battle. Outside of it, I don't really think they're that cool. But bigger formation, as I mentioned before, would be an army. And how do you get an army? First of all, I just wanted to show you a trick. How you can select all of your troops garrison. So this is Georgetown. If I click here, only on this button, it will highlight all of the units. So we're going to get out. Here, we also have a brigade. And your troops will keep their brigade formation, even when garrisoned. You can see now they're still in a brigade. But let's actually try to form an army. We have a lot of troops here. We're going to go here, join the army, and we can see all the selected units. Let's actually speed it up, and we're going to order them to go somewhere, maybe here. So your units going to keep the same pace. Sometimes they're not going to follow the same route, but they're going to try to keep the same pace. That means that cavalry and your general, they're usually way more mobile, will not just run out, but they're going to move at the same pace as supply regiments and infantry regiments. There are 2 types of settlements in this game. One would be city, the other one would be a fort. Cities, as we mentioned before, are economic hubs. You can check out more in my economic tutorial. A more important thing for our military tutorial would be workforce and recruits. We already covered those. And troops camping capacity. This basically means how many troops you can garrison. Here the limit is a bit less than 2,000, but we have 2,700 present. So this number is usually white, but now it turns red. That means that our troops are living in bad conditions. They're going to get sick. They're going to desert at a much higher rate. Desertion rate also depends on the season. So if it's winter, it's going to get much worse. During the summer, it's not terrible. Well, our cities, as I mentioned, are economic hubs. You have a lot of buildings that you can construct. But in order to expand garrisoning capacity, you need to build barracks. On the other side, we have forts. And forts have everything basically the same. Well, in order to increase troop camping capacity, you need to increase the main building. So you start with stockade, you have a fort, you have level 3 would be fortress, as we can see here. This one is increasing army capacity by 3,000. It's giving it ammunition and provision storage. So here we can see ammo and provisions. Ammo and provisions are calculated within the regiments that exist because these regiments have their own provisions, they have their own ammunition. So if I get out, look at this, ammo is going down and provisions are going down. But if I go back in, the numbers are up again. And when it comes to different levels of forts, they provide you specific bonuses on a global map. So if there's exchange of fire or they are attacking your fort and you're not really having a general to fight directly in a tactical battle, you're going to receive plus 60% melee, damage resistance by 50%, reload speed 70%, morale 30%, and physically forts will get bigger. Level 1 fort is very small, level 2 is bigger, and level 3 is huge. We already talked about attrition, but a financial one. If you lower down salaries or you cannot pay them at all, there is specific level of attrition. But there is also seasonal attrition between summer and winter. To conduct this experiment, I basically used a Fusilier regiment with 6 Fusilier companies on both sides. They were outdoors, so they could not get any replenishment. And they had normal salaries. They have sufficient provisions for the first 30 days. And the results were next. So on average, during the 10 days during the summer, you would lose 7 men. During average 10 days, you're going to lose 49 men during the winter season. That means for 30 days, these guys lost 21 men, while winter season guys lost 147 men. That's 1 to 7. During the summer, the same regiment will lose 1 man, while during the winter, they're going to lose 7 times much. And I also noticed something interesting. During the summer, attrition was constant. Like 7 per 10 days, 7 per 10 days, 7 per 10 days. During the winter, it was kind of slowing down. So the first 10 days, it was 57. The second 10 days was 47. And the third 10 days was 43. And this tells me basically that the winter attrition does not only increase because of the modifiers, but also there is something else into consideration. That's the size of the regiment. The more men you have in a regiment, the higher the attrition will be. As your regiment loses men, the attrition level will be lower. Even with these guys, actually, after the first 30 days, they had provisions. The second 30 days, they did not have provisions. Their attrition level was actually lower, even without provisions, because their overall numbers in the regiment were lower. I conducted additional test comparing a single company regiment, 120 men, versus 6 company regiment and 720 men for 10 days during the winter season. One company regiment did not suffer a single casualty, while these guys suffered 57 attrition. So the smaller the number of men per regiment, the less the attrition will be. The bigger the number of men per regiment, the higher the attrition will be during the winter season. We are in winter. It's January 1st of 79, and we're right now between Northern and Southern Carolina. Well, there is a visual difference. In the Northern Carolina and above, we have snow, of course. South Carolina and further you go south, it's kind of normal thing. This is not only visual distinction. Your troops in Northern Carolina and upper colonies will suffer winter attrition. If they're outdoors, they're going to suffer winter attrition. Well, your troops in South Carolina, Georgia, they're going to suffer basically summer attrition. So there is actual difference. We talked about regiment stats and how to improve them through perks. And we see that perks are obtained through combat or training. How do we do training? Well, we go to headquarters, and here we can see artillery chief. So we're gonna increase this. We have 3 levels. These levels depend on how much ammo you're willing to spend every day. So this will be the lowest one. We have higher and the highest. This is insane amount of ammo, by the way, per day. And it's never the case. You're never gonna need 700 per day. Usually, maybe every 5th regiment will actually train. So do not worry too much about this. There is no additional cost. I checked multiple times. Here it says Army expenses, training is 0. Even when you conduct it for weeks, there is nothing. So either the only cost would be ammo, or the real cost is not calculated in here. What you need to do is to increase your production of ammunition. You go to production management and you get as many of these guys as possible. If you're doing serious training, of course. Then, important to understand is that brigades, for some reason, would not train. I do not know why, but as long as you have your units in a brigade, they will refuse to train. Let's see how training actually works. And how you know if your units are training or not. We're going to wait until the end of the day. And here it is. We get those small numbers. We get like ammo, and we get some like experience icon. That means that your units are training, and this means that there is not enough ammo. Sometimes there is enough ammo, but they show you there is not enough ammo. Like if we go to Fort here, we have over 100 ammo and only one regiment that can train, and it says not enough ammo. Kind of funny. I've conducted an experiment with regiments, testing 3 different types of regiments. So mixed Fusilier regiment, mixed Militia regiment, and Dragoon regiment. Well, this was at the max ammo scale. So if I did it at lower, it would take forever to complete. So for Fusiliers, it takes between 16 and 17 days to basically upgrade their tier, their perk. It would take about 10 ammo per day for them. 128 total ammunition. For mixed militia regiments, this will be 30 days, so almost double the time. They would take 8 ammo per day, but total ammo consumption would be almost double, 240. Then we have Dragoon Regiment, which is by far the most efficient. From level 1 to level 2, it would take them 12 days, 2 ammo per day, and 24 total ammunition consumption. By far the best. Well, cannons and mortars would require as much ammo as basically 4 infantry companies. So there is a difference in what kind of companies you have. Also, there is a difference in weapons used. If your regiments are using civilian muskets, their ammo requirements will be lower. If they're using Charlotte Hill 66 or Brown Besses, they're gonna need more. The same is with cannon caliber. The lower the caliber of the cannon or mortar is, the less ammo they're gonna use. Do not change your companies during the training. Do not alter them because they're gonna reset their experience. Your regiments can take casualties. This will lower down their experience, but the perks will stay. If you already acquired perks, they will stay. I also discovered that officers in charge of the regiment has no effect on speed of the training. Training will remain the same. If the officer is crappy or it's really good, it doesn't matter. Additional thing is that you can only improve from level 1 to level 2 as a perk. For the level 3 perk, you cannot obtain it through training. They're going to train for some 15 days each. Like all of them going to train for 15 days. And then the training will stop without actually obtaining that perk. So I'm not sure if this is currently a bug or if this is purposeful, that if you want to obtain that 3rd perk for your regiment, you need to do it through combat. If you're running out of provisions, what you can do is utilize Foraging Mechanic. Foraging Mechanic can be seen in Quartermaster Chief. Here we have option to pay or not to pay for forage provisions. In theory, if you do not pay, people should hate you because you're collecting their food during the winter. Well, if you pay, they're gonna hate you slightly less, right? So let's see. Currently, we're not paying for it, and let's see what is happening. We have one Fusilier unit in the enemy region. One is in our region. We have Militia regiment in our region outdoors, and the one is in Portsmouth garrisoned. So let's start. We're gonna go to forage. Whenever you click, you get slightly less provisions, slightly more provisions, pardon me. And we're gonna do the same in our own region. With Militia, you cannot really forage unless you conquer the settlement and you're in the garrison. So here we can forage. Let's wait until the end of the week to see the results on loyalty. We did not pay anything, by the way. So we are here, and let's go to Portsmouth. The effect is 0.2. The debuff is 0.2 for foraging. This is actually tiny, considering how many provisions we collected. Well, it's kind of a bug, and I'm going to showcase it why. Let's start it once again. This time around, we're just going to turn on the payments for foraging. And let's do the same thing. These guys going to forage in the enemy territory, but look at now. We're actually paying for stuff. And how about here? Also, we're paying for things. We said militia cannot do that, but garrison militia can. So let's go to foraging once again. Perfect. Let's speed it up. And I think now we can check on the results. If we check the loyalty, it's minus 5.5%. That's huge. Insane. And not only that we are paying for provisions that we are acquiring, but loyalty debuff is insane. Well, they kind of messed it up. There is a bug. I notified the developers, and they're probably going to fix it. They have a lot of things on their plate, so you guys need to check it. When you're playing in maybe a month or two, make sure to check how this is working. Actually, when you're paying for provisions, loyalty debuff should be very low. But if you're not paying for provisions, loyalty debuff should be much, much higher as it is now. So as I said, conditions are mixed up, and this is the result. But in the future, this will probably be fixed. Looting is very similar to foraging. The difference between looting and foraging is that when you're foraging, you're collecting provisions. When you're looting, you're actually collecting raw materials. During foraging sessions, nothing bad is happening to the region. Well, if you're looting, you're destroying settlement level buildings and you're restoring regional level buildings. So let's see what is happening. If we start playing, we're going to go looting. We're just going to click a couple of times. We're getting a lot of raw materials here. The same is happening right now. Just going to click so many times. Eventually, you will not be able to continue with this, because your looting potential will go down as you're collecting as many things as humanly possible. Militia cannot conduct any kind of looting unless they are in the city. They're controlling the region. Only then these guys can actually loot. The same applies to foraging. Well, this will have big time negative effects on the region. First, we're destroying some of the buildings here, and on the regional level as well. We can damage up to 4 buildings. So you should never do this in your own region. Only if you know you cannot really hold it, this is where you can do that. It's really good to do maybe at the start of the campaign. If you cannot take Boston, you can put your troops here and just start foraging and looting. Alternatively, if you're playing as British, sometimes you cannot, you're just turtling up here, and you cannot really expand because you don't have enough men to defend all of these settlements, to garrison them. So when you're visiting like Morristown or Philly, you're fighting the Americans, you can use your troops to basically loot and forage everywhere, because you're not going to suffer any consequences. You cannot keep those cities anyway. But we discovered that militia is actually really bad at this. In order to forage or loot, you have to control the settlement. Well, with your line infantry or Fusiliers, you can easily do it even though you're not controlling the region. If you lose your commander-in-chief in George Washington during a battle, it's automatic GG. You lose the campaign. Something similar happens with reputation. If your reputation points fall below 15, you'll be given a short period of time to improve them. But if you cannot rise above 15, it's GG. You lose your campaign once again. And then if we go to foreign relations, we can see campaign progress bar. This one it will indicate how likely you are to win or to lose the campaign. The campaign ends in 81. And if this bar is in your favor, you win. If it's not, you lose. It indicates how many soldiers were killed, how many destroyed units, sunk ships, capture settlements, but also how big and powerful your armies and navies are in comparison to the British Army and Navy. After the latest patch, during the American campaign, you can actually tell how big the next invasion will be. And if you, of course, go here to headquarters and you pay all of your intelligence costs, then foreign relations, you click here, you can see exact number of regiments. We have 8 regiments, 4,500 men, basically no mercenaries and no fleet. That means that probably the next invasion will come from the north, will be a land invasion.